There's a reason the Stoics didn't chase revenge, didn't scream for attention, didn't try to control what others said or did. They understood something most people still haven't learned. Real power isn't loud. It's not reactive. It's rooted. They believed the strongest person in the room is often the one who says the least but sees the most. The one who doesn't flinch when challenged. The one who doesn't fold under pressure. Because when you master yourself, you stop needing to dominate others. And that's where we begin. If you've ever wondered how to make people respect you, how to create a presence that makes your enemies pause, not through threats or confrontation, but through stillness, then this message is for you. Let's start with the first and most essential piece of inner dominance. Part 1. Master your emotions. Let calmness be what they fear most. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from raising your voice, throwing punches, or making threats. It comes from the quiet, unshakable, composed, and unbothered. And that power? It starts with emotional control. Because when someone tries to rattle you, provoke you, press the buttons they think will break you, and nothing happens, that is when fear starts to build in their mind. Not because of what you say, but because of what you don't. Because they can't read you, can't shake you, can't make you lose your footing. You see, mastering your emotions doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you're no longer enslaved by what you feel. It means you can feel anger, but not act on it. You can feel frustration, but not become it. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And that quote, it's not poetic fluff, it's truth forged in fire. Because calm is not weakness, calm is control, calm is command. Calm is terrifying to those who thrive on reaction. Think about it. What happens when someone insults you and you lash out? You've just handed them control. They set the trap, you walked right in. But what happens when you don't flinch? When you look them in the eye with stillness, not rage. When you refuse to give them the satisfaction of seeing you stirred, they start to question everything. Suddenly, they're the ones off balance. And in that moment, you own the room. Let me tell you about a man named Thomas. Years ago, he worked alongside someone who made it their mission to unnerve him. Snide remarks, subtle jabs, passive-aggressive digs in meetings. At first, Thomas fell into the trap. He defended himself, he argued, he raised his voice, and every time he walked away feeling worse, like he had lost something, his dignity, his cool, his peace. Then something changed. Thomas stopped playing the game. The next time he was provoked, he didn't bite. He just stood there, calm, unreadable, untouchable. And something amazing happened. The provocation stopped. Not because the bully changed, but because the game stopped being fun. Because what's a game without reaction? What's a fight if only one person shows up swinging? So how do you get to that place of calm power? First, you recognize your triggers. What sets you off? What makes your chest tighten, your hands clench, your voice rise? Don't run from those things. Study them. Know them like a general studies a battlefield, because once you know the terrain, you stop getting ambushed. Second, learn to pause. Before the words leave your mouth, before your face changes, before you slam the door. Breathe. Just breathe. Even 5 seconds of stillness can save you hours of regret. And third, remind yourself, your reaction is your responsibility. No one can make you lose control unless you hand it to them. This isn't about being passive. It's about being powerful in a way they never saw coming. Because in a world that screams louder, moves faster, and reacts quicker, the one who remains still, truly still, is the one they remember. Not the loudest, not the angriest, but the calmest. And you don't get that kind of presence from pretending. You get it from mastering the battlefield within. Your thoughts, your impulses, So the next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Let the silence speak. Let your stillness do the talking. Let your composure shake the ground beneath them. Because the person who can't be provoked, that's the person no enemy ever forgets. Part 2. Maintain an unshakable presence. Let the room feel you before you speak. There's a kind of power that doesn't need an announcement. It doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't shout or wave its arms or make dramatic entrances. It simply walks in and the room shifts. People turn, conversations pause. There's no obvious reason, no loud footsteps, no booming voice, but something changes in the air. That's the kind of presence that leaves a mark. And the most powerful part? It's silent. In Stoic philosophy, presence isn't about dominating others, it's about owning yourself. When you walk into a room grounded, shoulders back, posture straight, eyes clear, you don't have to say a thing. People notice. Because you carry yourself like someone who's not afraid to take up space. Someone who doesn't need to prove their worth every 5 seconds. And that calm confidence, it makes people take a step back, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because it's rare. And in a world full of noise, what's rare gets attention. We've all seen people who try to act confident, bragging, interrupting, taking up every inch of the conversation. But that's not power. That's noise. Real presence doesn't seek to dominate. It simply is. It doesn't compete. It doesn't overcompensate. It just exists with purpose. And that purpose, that stillness, is what makes others quiet down when you speak. Let me tell you about someone I once knew. His name was Ethan. He wasn't loud. In fact, he rarely spoke more than necessary. But when he walked into a room, people noticed. He didn't demand attention. He never bragged. But his body language was deliberate, controlled, effortless. He would listen more than he talked. And when he did talk, people leaned in. Not because of what he said, but because of how he carried himself when he said it. His presence was like gravity, subtle but impossible to ignore. And the truth is, you can cultivate that same energy. How? It starts with how you hold yourself. Stand tall. Sounds simple, but posture is everything. Slouching sends a signal of insecurity before you even open your mouth. But when you hold yourself with strength and composure, people instinctively take you more seriously. Next, move with intention. Don't rush, don't fidget. Be deliberate in your gestures, your steps, your expressions. You're not trying to be robotic. You're trying to communicate that you are in control of yourself. And finally, let silence be your companion. Don't fill every space with chatter. Don't rush to prove your intelligence or charm. Trust that your presence is already saying more than enough. The quieter you are, the more people listen when you do speak. Lao Tzu said, "Silence is a source of great strength." And the Stoics would agree. They taught that composure, stillness, and discipline are louder than any boast or outburst. The more anchored you are in yourself, the less you need to assert your dominance, because it becomes obvious without you trying. In the end, presence isn't about attention. It's about alignment. When your body, your mind, and your energy are in sync, people feel it, even before they understand it. That's what they remember. That's what they respect. So the next time you walk into a room, don't try to impress anyone. Just be rooted, be composed, be deliberate, and let the silence do what shouting never could. Part 3. Let your actions speak. Silence that commands respect. In a world obsessed with noise, with updates and announcements, with telling everyone what you're going to do before you even do it, there is something unbelievably powerful about staying quiet and just showing up. No declarations, no grand promises, just steady action, consistent presence, quiet execution. And it's that quiet that eventually speaks the loudest. Because anyone can talk, anyone can claim, but not everyone follows through. And over time, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. We live in an age where people overshare every intention. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to hit the gym. I'm going to change my life. But the Stoics didn't believe in talking about virtue. They believed in living it, in embodying the values they held dear, without the need for applause. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that's the invitation here. Let your discipline be your declaration. Let your actions be your authority. Let your daily grind tell the story of your strength. Because here's what people eventually realize. The one who talks less but delivers more, That's the one who earns lasting respect. It's not the person who yells their goals the loudest. It's the one who shows up every single day without needing to be seen. Quiet consistency destroys loud intentions. Every time. I knew a guy. Let's call him Jack. He was always full of ideas, big dreams, plans for the future. He would talk about the books he was going to write, the business he was going to build, the lifestyle he was chasing. People around him were impressed at first. But months went by, and nothing changed. His excitement faded, his words grew repetitive, and eventually people stopped listening. Then one day, Jack changed. He stopped talking, he stopped posting about his plans. He just got to work. He disappeared from the noise, but behind the scenes, he was moving. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. And then, the results started to speak. Not in likes or views, but in real wins. Consistency, growth, progress. And the same people who once ignored him now asked him how he did it. His silence had become his leverage. That's what happens when you stop talking and start doing. People begin to feel your focus, even if they don't see it right away. You become someone whose presence commands attention, not because you're loud, but because your results can't be denied. So how do you make your actions speak louder than your words? First, be consistent, even if it's small, even if it's quiet. Keep moving. Daily effort compounds in ways that no speech ever will. Second, aim for excellence. Don't just do it to get it done. Do it to stand out. Let your work reflect your character. And third, stay humble. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You don't need to convince anyone that you're working hard. The people who matter will see it when the time is right. And the people who don't, let them talk. Because in the end, words fade, excuses get forgotten, but results echo. They leave a mark. They make people pause. And when those results are born from silence, from discipline, from delayed gratification, that's when your enemies fear you. That's when doubters go quiet. Because they realize something. You're not here to talk. You're here to build. You're not here to perform. You're here to become. And the version of you that emerges through quiet action is unstoppable. Part 4. Never overreact to insults. Silence is your sharpest sword. There's a kind of insult that isn't meant to hurt. It's meant to pull you in. A passive-aggressive comment, a sarcastic remark, a public jab delivered with a smile. These are not just words. They're invitations to a game of reaction. Because the moment you take the bait, the moment you respond with anger or outrage or defensiveness, they win. Not because they were right, but because they got you to step out of your power. See, reacting to insults is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It might feel justified, it might feel good for a second, but all it does is make the flames bigger. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. They didn't waste their peace trying to change how people talked. They changed how they responded. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Let that sink in. The insult only has power if you let it rent space inside your mind. We live in a world where everyone's ready to clap back, to argue, to prove a point. But here's the truth most people don't see. Indifference is a weapon, and used correctly, it's devastating. When someone throws an insult your way and you meet it with total stillness, not silence rooted in fear, but in poise, they become uncomfortable because they didn't get what they wanted. They expected a spark. They wanted the fire, but you gave them ice. You gave them silence. And silence makes people reflect. Why didn't that work? Why aren't they upset? Do they even care? That's when the power shifts. That's when you win. Let me tell you about someone I know. We'll call her Linda. She had a coworker who made it their mission to get under her skin. Every meeting came with a dig. Every email had a tone. Every hallway encounter was laced with subtle disrespect. At first, Linda responded like anyone would. She defended herself. She corrected the record. She argued her worth. And every time, it got worse. Until one day she made a decision. she would not respond again. Not with words, not with energy, not even with a look. She gave them nothing. Not coldness, not warmth, just still, quiet presence. And it worked. The insults stopped, not because the other person changed, but because they were no longer being fed. They grew bored, powerless, and eventually they gave up. So how do you stop overreacting to insults? First, train your awareness. Pause before you respond. Insults are almost always emotional bait. See them for what they are, traps. Second, reframe what an insult actually is. It's not a judgment of your value. It's a reflection of the other person's insecurity, envy, or pain. Their words are mirrors. They show more about them than about you. And third, choose your silence carefully. This isn't about weakness. It's about refusing to let someone hijack your mood, your peace, or your dignity. When you react, they control you. When you remain unmoved, you control the moment. There's something deeply unsettling about a person who cannot be provoked, a person who isn't rattled by gossip, who isn't thrown off by a jab, who doesn't need to defend their name in every room. That kind of person becomes untouchable, not because they can't be insulted, but because they refuse to be owned by the insult. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't hand them your peace like it's nothing. Let your silence speak. Let your calmness be the final word. Because when they realize they can't shake you, that they don't have access to your emotions anymore, that's when they start to feel powerless. And that's when you walk away, not just with dignity, but with all the strength they thought they could steal from you. Part 5. Control what they know about you. Power lives in mystery. In a world that demands you to explain yourself, to share every detail, every goal, every thought, there is a rare and quiet power in choosing to hold some things back, in keeping parts of yourself protected, in maintaining just enough mystery to remain unpredictable. Because what people don't know, they can't use. And what they can't predict, they can't control. We're taught to believe that openness equals trust, that the more we reveal, the more others will understand us, accept us, embrace us. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone around you has pure intentions. Some people are watching you not to support you, but to study you, to analyze your triggers, to learn your habits, to file away your weaknesses so they can use them later. And when you give them access to your inner world without discernment, you give away more than words. You give away leverage. The Stoics believed that wisdom includes restraint, that not every thought is worth sharing, that strength is not just in what you say, but in what you don't. Sun Tzu, often echoed in Stoic principles, once said, "Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak." What he meant wasn't deception, it was strategy. It was about refusing to hand over your power by being completely transparent to people who haven't earned your trust. Think about it. When people can predict you, they can plan against you. If they know exactly what makes you react, they can press that button. If they know what you fear, they can weaponize it. If they know what you want, they can manipulate it. But if you control what they know, if you stay grounded, intentional, mysterious, they lose that ability. You become unreadable. And in being unreadable, you become untouchable. Let me tell you about someone I knew, Chris. At work, he believed in being an open book. He'd talk about his stress, his deadlines, his career ambitions, even the coworkers he struggled with. He thought that being honest would build stronger connections. But slowly, things started to turn. People would question his competence, subtly use his own words against him, and shift blame toward him in group settings. He felt exposed, until he realized something. He had armed them with information he freely gave. From that point on, he shifted. He became more measured, more quiet. He spoke less about what he felt and more about what he chose to share. The change was immediate. People stopped pressing, the tension eased, and his respect in the room, it grew. So how do you control what others know about you? First, speak with intention. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? And does it need to be said to this person? Not everything you think needs to leave your mouth. Second, guard your emotional triggers. The more people know what gets under your skin, the more power they have. Choose to respond calmly, even when inside you feel the pressure. And third, embrace the strength of mystery. You don't owe full transparency to everyone. Keeping some of your dreams, your fears, your goals close to your chest doesn't make you dishonest. It makes you wise. When people don't know what drives you, what shakes you, what you're planning, they become unsure. And uncertainty, especially in those who wish to control you, breeds discomfort. That discomfort? That's your shield. That's your protection. Because the less predictable you are, the more powerful your presence becomes. Remember this: silence is not just about not speaking. It's about choosing what to reveal and what to guard. Your life is your fortress. You don't let just anyone walk through the gates. The more you protect your inner world, the harder it becomes for anyone to invade it. And that quiet, thoughtful control? That's not coldness. That's not distance. Part 6. Make power moves in silence. Let results be your voice. There's a special kind of momentum that builds when you stop announcing every move, when you stop sharing every plan, and instead just get to work, quietly, strategically, without noise, without the need for validation. In a world obsessed with updates and big reveals, the one who moves in silence becomes a mystery, and mystery is magnetic. Mystery is unnerving. Mystery is power. You don't need to tell the world what you're about to do. You don't need to lay out your goals, your ambitions, your next steps like a roadmap for others to critique or sabotage. Because here's the truth most people never realize. The more you speak about your plans, the more vulnerable those plans become. Words invite opinions. Opinions invite doubt. And doubt, even if it comes from others, can quietly seep into your own conviction. Suddenly, the fire you had becomes a flicker. Not because you changed, but because you let too many voices into a dream that was still forming. The Stoics were clear about this. Don't just talk about your philosophy, live it. Let your values, your discipline, your growth show up in your behavior, not your words. Epictetus said, "Do not explain your philosophy, embody it." That's what silent progress looks like. You're not building to impress, you're not chasing applause. You're building because you know where you're going, and the world will understand when it sees the result, not before. Let me tell you about Emma. She had big dreams, a vision to start her own business, change her life, create impact. And in the beginning, she told everyone. Every dinner conversation, every group chat, every social post was about what she was going to do. People cheered her on at first, but over time, the excitement faded, and so did her own motivation. Every bit of feedback chipped away at her drive, until one day she went quiet. She stopped sharing her plans, she stopped talking about what was coming, and she started doing. She worked late nights, took risks, built behind the scenes. Months passed, no updates, and then one day, boom, she launched. And it wasn't just talk this time, it was real. Tangible, powerful. The ones who doubted her, speechless. The ones who watched her quietly, inspired. Because she let her success introduce her, and it spoke volumes. That's the power of moving in silence. When people don't see you coming, they can't stop you. They can't interfere. They can't prepare. And by the time they realize what you've built, it's already too late. The work is done. The foundation is laid, and the result is undeniable. So how do you make power moves in silence? First, keep your vision sacred. It's okay to dream big. Just don't hand your dream over to people who haven't earned the right to see it. Let your goals breathe in private. Second, focus on execution. Action creates clarity. Progress silences doubt. When your head is down and your hands are building, the noise around you fades. And third, let your results speak. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to explain your hustle. Let the outcome reflect your discipline. Let the final product be your statement. You don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to broadcast to be respected. Quiet work, done with purpose, becomes the loudest success story. And when people finally ask, "How did you do it?" you can smile and say, "I've been working on this the whole time." Because you don't win by talking, you win by doing. Quietly, relentlessly, unapologetically. Let them wonder. Let them watch. And when it's time, let them witness what silence built. Part 7. Be unapologetically yourself. Stop fitting in to stand in your power. There comes a point in your life when you get tired. Tired of molding yourself to fit into places that weren't built for you. Tired of shrinking your light just so someone else doesn't feel threatened. Tired of editing your thoughts, your values, your voice, just to make others comfortable. And at that point, when the exhaustion of pretending outweighs the fear of rejection, you arrive at something beautiful. Authenticity, and not just the watered-down kind. The raw, honest, unapologetic kind. The kind that doesn't flinch when it stands alone. The kind that doesn't fold just to belong. The kind that doesn't wait for permission to exist. The Stoics would call this living in accordance with nature, not just the nature of the world, but your own nature. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." It's not about debating your identity, it's about embodying it, fully, freely, without shame. Because here's the truth, people don't fear those who conform, they fear those who stand firm in their identity, those who speak with clarity, those who don't need a crowd to validate their worth. And yes, it intimidates people, but not because you're wrong. It's because your courage to be yourself reminds them of the parts of themselves they've buried. I want to tell you about Jake. He used to be the kind of person who blended in, smiled politely, nodded, even when he disagreed. He didn't want to offend. He didn't want to stand out. He just wanted to be accepted. But acceptance, as he came to learn, often came at the cost of authenticity. So little by little, he disappeared into versions of himself that pleased others, but disconnected him from his own truth. Until one day, it broke him, not loudly, quietly. He looked at his life and didn't recognize the man in the mirror. That's when the change began. He started saying what he meant, even when it was unpopular. He stopped forcing laughter in conversations that didn't align with his spirit. He stopped hiding the things that made him different. And what happened next surprised him. The people who only liked the version of him that played small, they left. But the ones who stayed, they saw him fully. And for the first time, Jake felt seen. Not for what he offered, but for who he was. So how do you become unapologetically yourself? First, stop outsourcing your worth. Your value isn't something you need others to confirm. It's something you carry, whether people recognize it or not. Second, embrace your differences. The things that make you too much for some people, those are the very things that will make you unforgettable to the right ones. Don't dim your light for rooms that were never built to hold it. And third, live by your own standards. Not your parents', not society's, not your friends', yours. Define what success means to you, define what integrity feels like for you, and let that definition be your compass, not the opinions of people who don't live your life. When you live authentically, two things happen. Some people fall away, and some people finally find you. The ones who were meant to walk with you, the ones who love the unfiltered version of who you are. And the more unapologetically you live, the less permission you need. You begin to realize that approval is addictive, but authenticity is freedom. So here's the challenge. Stop fitting in. Stop editing. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Be you, fully, fiercely, fearlessly, because when you show up as your whole self, something powerful happens. The world stops trying to mold you and starts respecting you. Thank you for listening to this message. If it found you in a moment where you were questioning your voice, your presence, your identity, let this be your reminder. You don't have to fit in to be powerful. You just have to be real. And when you're real, you become untouchable. Not because you're trying to impress, but because you finally remembered who you are.